per unit. And they've got to sort through all of those random stapled or crumpled or folded or paper clip assemblages of chaos. And so far, they've made less mistakes than any other aid I've ever had in all these years. To my knowledge, they've made something like 2 recording errors. One thing, though, they waste a lot of time with papers that aren't labeled. Think about it, they have to decide whether to give credit or not on something in the ballpark of 1,500 total assignments every unit. You know, it's no small feat. It really isn't. At this point in the year, they've written down somewhere in the ballpark of 7,000 check marks in my grade book. And I think I messed up 2 of them. The one thing that really makes their job crappy is when your papers aren't labeled. The funny thing is, they try really hard to make sure you get credit. They were students in my class. They know how frustrating it is when you've done assignment species diversity post-lab and you don't get credit. They know how much that sucks. They're throwing you a bone. They're volunteers. They try really hard. But on the other hand, you've done the work. You deserve the credit. And if you're not willing to put your name on the paper, I kind of feel like we should just recycle it. Like, it's not other people's problem to give you grades. So I really, really want to ask you, again, please label your assignments clearly. Naomi will stamp your 2 post labs in tagging. You have to answer some questions about sources of error, where you could have made mistakes in the math and stuff. Let me finish talking, and then you can finish what you're explaining. In the tagging, you're supposed to talk about sources of error in a written paragraph. That has to be labeled tagging post-lab. And Naomi will only stamp next to the title. Without a title, she won't stamp. Tagging post-lab, an explanation of sources of error. Species diversity post-lab, the discussion of your map that shows the different regions. Only if you titled them will she give you credit. And please look up at the board. If you have a whole paper, please look up at the board. If you have a whole paper, for the assignment, she'll stamp next to the title, but if you did the post-lab at the bottom of the pre-lab, she'll stamp where the post-lab is, and you might want to tell the aide, hey, look, the post-lab is down there. Because a lot of times they just go across the top, and they would miss that you had a stamp down here somewhere. So please make sure you make it easy for the aide. Next, remember that in the species diversity post-lab, you're supposed to have this colorful herb. And we already discussed this, but just in case, the horizon on land has a lot of diversity, but the most diverse parts of the ocean are actually at the 30s north and south. Yeah. Which you might remember I discussed in class was a really big surprise. People were shocked. Because at 30 degrees in the ocean, you have 2 separate diversities, the floating warm water on top and the sinking cold water below that. An ecotone, or the edge effect. The place is an ecotone, the concept is the edge effect.
So, in my explanation, I called it somewhat of an ecotone. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly an ecotone.
Okay, perfect.
Next, Does anybody have any questions about these labs, or can Naomi do this on autopilot and we move on? I'm hearing no questions, so Naomi will stand and then you will not disturb her while standing. I like that. Okay, next. I'd like to show you the trailer for tonight's movie, but there's a problem. It's such a low-budget movie that they never made a trailer. So I'll tell you about it, and then I can just fast forward through the movie and show you a couple of cool scenes. We're talking in this unit about human cultures and how they change and how they develop. And we've talked a lot about the first world and the third world. A few of you have seen the third world firsthand. And some of you, more than tourism, have experienced and felt the third world. That's cool. But I gotta say, Americans are not really well informed about how they are different from the rest of the world. It's not your fault. Nobody anywhere understands how they're different from the rest of the world because we all just live the life we've lived. Like your experience is all you know. The funny thing is, because I'm an immigrant like some of you, I come from a totally different culture, and I remember what it was like when I came here. I came when I was 8 years old. And I tell you what, I was blown away. I could not believe that this whole country is like this. I'm still a little surprised. It still sneaks up on me sometimes. I go, oh yeah, right, I'm not in Argentina anymore. Not good, not bad, just different. Things here are really different. So imagine how neat it would be if you could just pull somebody out of the most remote third world village, drop them in the middle of the first world, and ask them, like, hey, what do you notice is weird about our world here? And that's what happens in tonight's movie. Some lady from London went to Tibet to some like Buddhist retreat in the middle of nowhere. It's a city called Ladakh. It's not actually a small city, by the way. Ladakh, by Tibetan standards, is not tiny. She goes to Ladakh. She finds these two women in their 50s and says, hey, what do you know about the West? And she's like, oh, I've heard it's really fancy and really beautiful and really crowded. And so the white lady says, all right, come with me and I'll show you. And these two ladies are like, all right, okay. And so they fly to London. They fly to London and they're rocking their dope Tibetan robes and stuff and walking around London oh wow, come out, man. And they're like, hey, homeless guy. And they're like, homeless guy, what do you eat? He's like, oh, I'm getting out of the trash. And they're like, weird. And where do you sleep? And he's like, the doorway of the store. And they're like, oh. And you don't live with your parents? And he's like, no, my dad thinks I made some mistakes in my life, and I guess I can't go back to him anymore. And they're like, far out. The whole movie's about these weird Tibetans looking around London wow, washing machine, cool. Some stuff they get really tripped out. They go to an old folks home and they start crying. They're like, where are your children? And all the old people are all out of it, and they ask the woman who runs the retirement home, hey, where are their children? And the lady's like, they have jobs and stuff. These old people are here because they're very old, and some of them have dementia and other illnesses. And the Tibetan ladies are like, but where are their children? It doesn't compute. The movie has like some really touching, like amazing, intense reflections on society. On the flip side, it's super low budget. It's like cell phone recordings, you know, like it's super low budget. It's really biased. Like the organization who made it was trying to show the third world that the first world is not all perfect. Well, their whole point was like, hey, you know, Tibet's kind of cool, and a lot of us in London want to live this way. She takes them to like a supermarket, and they're like, oh my god. And then she's like, yeah, but look, what everybody wants to eat is local natural foods. And they're like, oh yeah, that's all we eat. Like, it's sort of, it has a significant bias, and so I'm warning you that the movie's low budget and biased. But it's 40 minutes, not that long, and it's like mind-boggling how weird our world looks to the rest of the world. So I'm going to like start the movie, and then I'm going to fast forward through a couple of chapters, because there's no trailer, but I want you to get a feel for it.